Hey, welcome to Financial Revelations, the financial podcast about finances. I think I said finances 11 times in that sentence. We do this every week. We try to do it every week. We pretty much do it every week. And I love to hear from people who are watching or listening to the podcast. And you can reach out to us. All you have to do is email Joshua at epsf.com. Joshua at epsf.com. Or you could catch us on Twitter, and the Twitter handle is at FI Revelations. And we do some surveys and some just non scientific things, and I like to hear what people are thinking. So I like to reach out to people and have them reach out to us. Today, we're going to talk about something that's near and dear to my heart, and that is bad policy equaling bad results. And we're seeing a lot of bad policy right now equaling bad results. And I want to focus on four of the bad policies. Now, mind you, there are way more than four bad policies happening right now. But I'm going to focus on four of them because they're, in my opinion, and I could be wrong about this, these four are the ones that are going to affect us the most in the next 24 months. And I want to look at those things because we do have an election coming up about a year, just over a year from now. In 2022, we're going to vote for senators, a third of the Senate, all of the House. And I think there's going to be some big changes because of these bad policies that are currently being enacted on us. And the first one is energy policy. So, as you probably have noticed, gas is extremely expensive right now, very expensive. When the Biden administration first came into office, the first thing they did was kill the Keystone Pipeline. Now, the Keystone Pipeline, all it really did was move energy around the country. It got energy from Oklahoma and some other areas in the middle of the country out to the East Coast, where energy is very expensive. On the upper East Coast, so if you go Boston and north, it's heating oil. They don't really have a natural gas pipeline up there, so they use a lot of heating oil to heat their homes in the winter. Very expensive, highly inefficient, highly inefficient. A truck has to go to your house and load your oil tank for every house. Well, that's extremely inefficient if you're using oil. So they could really use a natural gas pipeline, and the governors of those states, some of which are very liberal, want the natural gas pipeline, and it keeps getting blocked. So that right now the administration, what they're doing is they're looking for, and they actually said this, they're looking for efficient ways to move energy around the country. How about a pipeline, Joe? That's where I would start. Pipelines, they work 24 hours a day. Yes, there is a chance that there would be a leak in a pipeline. Always the case, always true. There is a risk there. What I would say is that with the way that they manage pipelines today, they're monitoring flow. So if there's a certain amount of flow at one part of the pipeline and that flow is less than at another part of the pipeline, usually fairly close, it identifies a leak very quickly. It's not going to be like the BP oil spill that went on for weeks and weeks and weeks, and you can shut down sections of a pipeline, thereby shutting down the whole thing. But there are workarounds and things like that they could do to keep the oil flowing, but canceling that Keystone Pipeline significantly cut supply. And then right after that, we allowed the Russians to complete their Nord Stream pipeline feeding Europe natural gas. Russia is going to hold the EU and Europe hostage with natural gas. It's going to happen. That should be our natural gas going to Europe. And we could do it in a variety of ways. Right now we liquefy natural gas, put it on big boats, and drive it across the ocean. Is it the most efficient way? No, a pipeline is the most efficient way, but it is what we have, and we're not going to be doing that because we allowed the Russians to finish that pipeline. And it wasn't Donald Trump that allowed them to finish the pipeline because Donald Trump blocked the Nord Stream pipeline. It was the Biden administration that allowed the Nord Stream pipeline to go through, and Europe will be held hostage. Also, just in Ohio alone, we broadcast out of Avon, Ohio. There are right now, about 18 months ago, there were 1,400 oil and gas wells in Ohio. Today, there's 600. And some of that is because oil was very cheap during at the beginning of the pandemic. I was getting gas for 99 cents a gallon. You may have been paying a little bit more. I usually go to Costco. Uh, but that is a huge reduction in oil and gas wells. And I think even a high school econ class could tell you what happens when you cut supply. Prices have to go up. So the wells are cut because of regulation and not renewing some oil and gas leases, especially on federal property and some other properties. But when you cut the number of wells that dramatically, and that's just in Ohio, and you think about the rest of the country, it's as equally as dramatic. And now we're begging the Middle East to help us out. And for a long time, over the course of many presidents, not just Donald Trump, we basically neutralized the Middle East because we were pumping so much oil here. And now that's not the case. We're down several million barrels a day in the United States. We were shipping oil out, and we're not doing that. Now we're begging the Middle East. The administration is begging the Middle East to increase oil supply, and they basically said no. We're gonna do it slow, and they like the price where it's at, and it's probably going to go higher. That is a very bad policy for the United States, and it creates an inflationary pressure that we haven't had in quite a long time. Now we have it. We have inflation pressure on fuel, and you think about your groceries. Every grocery that you buy, everything gets to that grocery store on a truck, a train, or a boat that's coming that way. If they're vegetables coming from California to Ohio, it's going to do a truck to the train, then a train to a truck to the grocery store, fuel. If that fuel is more expensive, your groceries are more expensive, and that's exactly what we're seeing. The next policy that is really a bad policy that's going to lead to a bad result is immigration. Right now, the market is getting flooded with cheap labor. Now, I want you to know I am not in danger, okay? In case you're wondering, my career is not in danger. The border is not being flooded with money managers or stockbrokers or people in finance. That's not who's coming across. It's really the union workers are at risk. Low-skilled labor is at risk. The lower end of the socioeconomic scale at significant risk as we have this unmitigated mass migration to the United States. And I understand why people want to come here. Of course they'd want to come here. This is a great place to live. We have a great welfare system for people who are down on their, that maybe they've just had some bad fortune for a while. We give people a chance to get back on their feet. I understand why they want to come here. We have an immigration system and an immigration policy that's worked pretty well for a long time. It's just that the Democrats don't like it. They say they want a path to citizenship. We already have a path to citizenship. We have an immigration policy, and you have to follow those rules. And, if I were somebody who had come here legally, got in line the right way, did all the things that you have to do, and, it takes about 10 years to become a citizen, I would be highly upset right now at what's happening. I'd be highly upset. And all you have to do is just look at the EU. The EU is a PhD study on what happens when you have unmitigated immigration. Wages plummet on the low end of the socioeconomic scale. People are displaced immediately. There's no way to retrain them in time because you're flooding the market with people who are willing to work for a third of what everybody else is willing to work for. And that's what happens. Now, it is true that the birth rate in America is falling, and we're not really producing enough kids. Now, I'm on the radio with a couple of people. In fact, I'm on the radio on WCRF on Thursday mornings at 8, 103.3 if you're in Cleveland, Moody Radio app if you're not. The two hosts there, Brian and Janelle, they have done their part. Between them, they have like 27 kids. So they're doing their part for the labor force, but most of us aren't. So immigration is a way to grow your economy. That is true. But if there's no checks and balances on it, it's harmful. And we're getting to the point where it's going to be harmful. And that creates a lot of pressure on the lower end of the socioeconomic scale. Remember, stockbrokers are going to be okay. The people from Guatemala are not money managers. The next policy, the third policy that I want to focus on briefly, and we're not going to be able to, I can't dig deep into these things because I really have about 15 minutes is what I want to keep this to. I know Joe Rogan goes for 3.5 hours. I don't know where he gets that energy. And I want to keep this what I would call chewable, so we could look at several things and do several different subjects. So the third policy is the fiscal policy, and that is what the president and the Congress are trying to pass. Spending bills, the budget, lifting the debt ceiling, all those things. The economy right now, the United States economy is flooded with cheap money and hampered by significant shortages. Again, a high school econ class could figure this out. So you have a ton of money out there. I mean, just huge amounts of money with very little to buy. That is inflationary. Inflation at its core is too much money chasing too few goods. So if you have a lot of money in the system, but you have a lot of things to buy, you're probably going to be okay. If you don't have a lot of money in the system and you don't have a lot of things to buy, you're also probably going to be okay. But when any one of those things kind of gets out of whack, you're not going to be okay. And I understand why the Fed has a loose money policy. We're coming through a pandemic. They couldn't really raise rates in the pandemic. It would have sunk the economy. In fact, the government did a really good job acting quickly when the pandemic started. From a monetary standpoint, we told people we can't work, so we paid them. That was the right thing to do because otherwise we probably would have gone into a depression. So Congress, both sides, acted very quickly. The president signed the bills, and they did a good job. I like that. It's time to get back to work. But right now, we have some massive inflationary pressure already present. So if you pass a $3.5 trillion spending bill, which will probably be $6 trillion in the end, there's a very real risk of hyperinflation if we maintain these shortages. And we have to be aware of this possibility because once inflation is already way too high. It's like at 5.7% right now, year over year. We haven't seen this in a long time. Now, the Fed is trying to create inflation, but they really want to be around 2%. So they have used the word transitory. I don't think it's transitory. I think inflation is here right now. And unless we solve the shortages, it's not going away. So when you spend $6 trillion more, oh boy, along this current trend, we're in trouble. And we have to be willing to accept that $6 trillion more in an economy with shortage is not going to be a good thing. It's going to make it way worse than what it is now. And it's, for somebody with an economics background, it's troublesome. It's the kind of thing that makes my antenna rise and say, I think I need to be planning for some things here. And so we're going to be doing that. And the last thing that I want to focus on, and I only have a minute to do this, is the COVID policy. When I think, disclosure, I'm fully vaccinated. I recommend that you also be fully vaccinated. I wouldn't require it of anybody. It's your choice. I'm not going to think less of you if you don't do it. I realize that everybody has their own choices to make. And what happens when you make a COVID vaccine mandate to an airline? You cancel 1,400 flights. And now there's professional athletes refusing to get vaccinated. They're being banned from their teams. The pushback is starting. And I think you're going to see more of it, maybe not through other airlines, but certainly through one of the most popular airlines for leisure travelers. Southwest Airline canceled more than 1,400 flights a week ago. They said it was because of the weather. It was not because of the weather. They said it was because of scheduling conflicts. It was not scheduling conflicts. Pilots do not want to take the vaccine. A pilot has to have a medical card at all times. So they got to take a physical every year to maintain their flying ability. And what they're saying is, look, we don't know all the ramifications of the vaccine. And I think what happened is I think the Democrats really shot themselves in the foot when they were saying when Donald Trump was coming out with the vaccine. Actually, it wasn't him. He was just facilitating the vaccine manufacturer, and it was quick. Admittedly, that happened very quickly. And they were saying they weren't going to put a Donald Trump vaccine in them. And then Joe Biden got elected, and all of a sudden they want everybody to get the vaccine. And I think that was really detrimental to their effort to get people vaccinated. And I think a lot of people are skeptical because of that. And I think there's just a lot of people that are skeptical to begin with. So when you do something like that, when you create an environment to make people skeptical, and then you say, oh, wait a minute, I was only kidding, or you don't even admit that you said it, I think that you've really hampered your efforts to get people vaccinated. And I think that is the number one reason why people are skeptical right now. Now, mind you, there was always going to be some people skeptical. And we're never going to have 100% of the population vaccinated. And hopefully COVID will disappear soon, just like the Spanish flu did in 26 months. But coming up soon will be our 1-year anniversary for Financial Revelations. And my marketing director, Josh, who I value his opinion very much, suggested that we do something special. So we are going to do something special for the 1-year anniversary. I want you to stay tuned because we're going to do a giveaway. I'm not going to tell you what it is. I'm going to use a little fish hook here to keep you engaged. But stay tuned. We're going to do something special for our 1-year anniversary about a month from now. It's going to be a little bit of a giveaway, and I want you to win. I want to give stuff away. I am David Safransky. This is Financial Revelations, and I'll talk to you next week.